saves the world by signal. Chapter 1. Boggles learns a plot. Boggles leaned hard on the stick, and the Sopwith camel rolled to one side, narrowly missing the stream of bullets fired from the Paisley Baron's triplane. Executing a clever turny thing, he brought the nose of his aircraft up and squeezed the trigger on his flight stick. The Baron's triplane folded up and plummeted earthward. Boggles could hear Baron von Hoffelschotten shouting with anger as he popped his chute and floated clear of the burning wreckage of his Paisley aircraft. Laughing gaily in his cockpit, Boggles wiped the motor oil from his goggles and guided his Sopwith camel down to land on the muddy RAF paddock below. As he climbed from his plane, his comrades in arms sauntered from the hangar. There was Captain Algernon, who once made insulting gestures to Archduke Ferdinand, Corporal Hobbit, who fell over a lot, and Private Bongo, who molested small animals and got on suspiciously well with the German POWs. "Well done, old bean," Algernon exclaimed. "Spiffingly good show," Hobbit shouted. "I'm wearing rubber underpants," Bongo ejaculated. Boggles beamed at the praise. "Oh yes, that dastardly Hun won't be bothering us for some time. Let's go have some ginger beer." They walked to the officers' lounge and sat down to enjoy some ripping yarns and to feed Bongo under the table. Presently a swarthy chap with a big, suspicious moustache sidled up to them. "Good evening," he said. "Which one of you is Bogglesworth, I say?" "Why, that would be me," said Boggles. "What do you want, you nasty, greasy-haired foreign person?" "I am Count König of Moldavia. My castle has been taken over by nasty Germans. I would very much like for you to fly in and get it back for me." "Ha!" said Captain Algernon. "Why should we help a mustachioed foreigner like you when there are plenty of fine upstanding English castles to protect?" "Eh? Indeed," said Corporal Hobbit. "And how do we know we can trust you? You might be a German spy." "Pah," spat Count König. "I am no spy. And your dog has just urinated on my shoes." "Sorry," muttered Private Bongo, "but I agree with them. What's in it for us if we get your castle back from the Germans?" "Well," said König, twiddling his moustache, "I happen to know that the Germans are using my castle as a base to build their new super weapon." Boggles covered his mouth with a hand, shocked. You don't mean?" "Yes, they have perfected a way of making themselves impervious to racial slurs and bad jokes about leather trousers. And your dog has urinated on me again." "Oh my goodness," said Hobbit. "If the Germans become immune to our trouserial banter, they could conceivably take over the world. We would be hammered into submission by the steel boot of fascist oppression." "All by great big floppy rubber truncheons," cried Bongo. "This just won't do," exclaimed Boggles. "We must travel with all haste to this foreign person's castle and put a stop to their dastardly plot." Chapter 2. Boggles gets captured. It was dark as the trio approached the castle. The moon was hidden behind big, greasy foreign clouds. Bats fluttered overhead, and the castle dominated the skyline above them. Boggles turned around and motioned to the other two. "Algernon, Hobbit, scout around to see if we can find a way in." "And where's Bongo?" Hobbit grinned. "I tied him to the airplane. I figured we shouldn't just leave it there unguided. Someone might have heard us land. I used really strong rope, too." "But you didn't count on my abilities as a contortionist." "Ha!" laughed Bongo, appearing behind them. "Damn," said everyone else. "Well, I would have thought you would have guessed. How else do you think I could lick my own eyeballs?" Suddenly, there was a shout from above them, and a beam from a torch lit them all up. "Hände herauf, Sie Englischer Hunde!" came a shout. "No speak, oh Dago," retorted Boggles calmly. "Now, kindly get that light out of my face and take it to your Generalissimo." "Ich trage Gummi-Unterhosen," shouted Bongo, and he made a dash for the safety of a nearby tree. Shots rang out all around him, but he leapt behind the tree, saddled a small horse, and galloped away before the Germans could capture him. There was much shouting and jostling and calling of names, but eventually the other three remaining British warriors were knocked unconscious by the swarthy German thugs and dragged into the castle. It was some hours before Boggles regained consciousness to find himself chained to a wall in the castle dungeons. Captain Algernon was tied similarly beside him, as was Corporal Hobbit.
"Well,"
Boggles muttered,
"not quite the entry we had planned, eh, chaps, but at least we're inside the castle." "It was horrible,"
whined Corporal Hobbit.
"They must have fired 20 shots at him, and they all missed. It was not like he was riding that fast."
"What's worse," said Algernon, grimacing,
"is that I called one of them a pointy-headed lederhosen-wearing Knockwurst molester, and he hardly twitched. They must be further along with their research than we thought."
"Never mind, old bean," said Boggles.
"Sooner or later they'll have to come in here and unchain one of us so that they can torture us. All we have to do is to use that opportunity to escape, and then we can foil their dastardly foreign little scheme, and to blazes with their filthy foreign cheeses."
Vlad had lived among German soldiers throughout his entire adult life, and he knew them for the unpleasant foreigners that they were, with their loud voices and big sausages. He was a secret agent working for His Majesty's government and was on a mission to find and destroy the super weapon that the Germans were developing. The Germans all thought he was harmless old Vlad, the odd jobsman who worked in the kitchens and made clever little cupcakes and small party snacks on sticks. But really, he was the most highly trained operative in the British arsenal. He had heard of the 3 British officers captured by the Germans and knew that he must rescue them from a fate worse than death. Waiting until the guards were all heads down facing Mecca and praying, he snuck past and down to the castle dungeons. Using a key fashioned from his own small intestine, he unlocked and opened the door to the prisoner's cell. Inside, he saw the 3 British officers, all unconscious. The one in the middle was Bogglesworth, one of the others was hunched forward in his chains, and the third didn't even reach the ground. Risking a quick glance over his shoulder, he scuttled forward and unlocked Bogglesworth's chains. "Don't worry," he whispered. "I know a way." Suddenly, Boggles swung his arm, and a heavy manacle on his wrist caught Vlad square on the side of the head. "Damned foreigners, torture me, would you?" he snarled, and kicked his prone body with a high-heeled army boot. Bending down, he grabbed Vlad's key and unlocked the other 2 prisoners. Together, they made their way out of the dungeons and into the castle. Chapter 3. Boggles finds a button. Slowly, the trio crept through the castle, avoiding German patrols by pretending to be waxwork figures of British officers. "How do we know where to go, Boggles?" asked Captain Algernon. "This castle is huge. Where would they be developing their weapon?" "Easy," said Boggles. "We simply look for the highest concentration of German guards. That is guaranteed to be the way to the weapon." Corporal Hobbit blanched. "Find more Germans? I don't think I like the sound of that. Let's go home." Boggles smiled disarmingly. "Did I say weapon? I meant to say fudge." Hobbit blinked. "This way," he said, and dashed off towards a large group of Germans. The Germans looked bemused for a moment and then lifted their rifles. "Look, a giant Knockwurst!" shouted Boggles, pointing behind them. The Germans all turned, and Boggles ushered the other 2 through a door, which he locked behind them. Turning, he saw that his hunch was correct. The room contained the super weapon and a large throne-like swivel chair, which was facing away from them. "So," said a voice, "you have found your way here after all. Oh, my scheming has proved to be a success." Boggles turned to face the throw. "Who are you, you despicably evil foreigner? Show yourself, or I'll tell no one about the Fräulein and the Beuteltier." "Oh no," said the voice. "I'm afraid your petty English insults won't work on me, you see." The chair slowly swiveled until the trio could see the occupant's face. "I'm not entirely German." The 3 British officers stared in horror. Finally, Hobbit was able to speak. "So, that's why the Germans were such lousy shots. Bongo, you sod." "Ha ha ha," laughed Bongo. "Indeed I am. And more so, because shortly I will lead my hordes to rampage across the world. And all because of this super weapon you came to destroy."
Boggles snarled. "You'll never get away with it." Algernon made a gesture. Hobbit leapt into action. "I'm afraid, dear Boggles, that I already got away with it." "Huh, Algernon, I didn't know you could count as high as 2. And will please one of you pick up Hobbit?" "If my legs were longer, you'll be in real trouble about now," snarled the angry Hobbit from where he'd tripped and fallen. "Why did you lead us here, Bongo?" Boggles asked. "Because who else would appreciate my innate cunning? Who more deserving of my wrath than the 3 people who've made my life a living hell? I shall repay you for the years spent snuffling under your tables, for the fingers caught in hastily slammed underwear drawers, for the doodles on the walls of public lavatories laughingly titled Bongo. Oh yeah, I will repay all of it this day. But first, let me show off my super weapon." Bongo stood from the chair and walked to the weapon. It was a collection of wires and tubes and pipes all leading to one small stool, which stood in the centre of the room. "The soldier sits here," he said, "and these wires deliver a huge electric shock to the humour centre of the brain, totally killing it. Within minutes he has a complete understanding of British humour, especially your irony and your aggravating cynical quips. This is only the prototype. Within hours the technical core will be here to draw up plans for building thousands of these across Germany. This time next year, the world will be mine." "That's nice," said Boggles. "What's this bit?" "Oh, that's the self-destruct button." Boggles pressed the button and screamed, "Run!" at his companions. The trio bolted for the door as the room began to shake. Behind them, Bongo turned to stare in horror as the huge super weapon begins to flash and sparkle. Pieces of tubing flew through the air to embed themselves into walls, and chunks of plaster the size of Alabama fell from the ceiling. He just had time to scream, "No!" before it exploded, sending super-sharp fragments of metal tearing through him and engulfing him in a huge fireball. Some days later, back at 266 Squadron headquarters, Boggles, Algernon and Hobbit lie out on the grass, enjoying the afternoon sun, watching the German POWs break rocks with small rubber mallets. "You know," said Hobbit, "I really miss Bongo." "Why is that?" asked Algernon. "He's much further away. It's a more difficult shot." "Oh." Boggles turned to his companions and said, "Well, at least now that the evil superweapon has been destroyed, the Germans are still as vulnerable to our scathing wit and toilet humour." "Yes, Boggles," said Hobbit. "You have saved the world once more from the threat of fascist domination. Civilization has a lot to thank you for." "Indeed it does," Boggles agreed modestly. "Does anybody fancy a ginger beer?" The end.